Ah, Lovelock, a 1950s prefab community, previously a hub for atomic bomb testing, is in some serious trouble. Yep, you guessed it. This testing has created giant mutant ants led by the Ant Queen, who are now building an A-bomb of their own. Why? Yep, you guessed it. To wipe Lovelock off the map. Sounds cool, right? Yep, you guessed it. Well, it's kind of. It Came from the Desert is, without a doubt, a product of its time. An early CD-ROM game showcasing video capabilities on a CD. Yes, it's grainy and muddy, and you can't make out very much detail, but at the time, real people in a game was kind of a novelty, even if the overall gameplay was tossed out the window in order to accommodate it. Right away, you'll be treated to a great song, then thrust directly into the game.
They build cities, wage wars.
There isn't anything option-wise to speak of because, well, it just begins like popping in a DVD with no menu. In a way, though, this makes sense because most of It Came from the Desert plays out like a movie with a slight twist of choose your own adventure. The game has a real cinematic feel, and for that, I give it credit.
This is no mindless bug invasion like those trashy science fiction movies.
There are multiple branching paths, and you won't see all of the segments in one playthrough. In an issue of TurboPlay magazine, it revealed that the game consisted of 1 hour of footage, 180 sequences, and 50 background plates. Hot damn.
Eat my heat, dirtbag!
For most of the game, you'll be watching scenes and listening for clues on what to do next.
I gotta get over to Lud's pretty soon to get some grenades.
Selecting locations, and waiting for the CD to load. The load times aren't long, but they are numerous and do slow down the game's choreography. You play as Buzz Lincoln, a high school senior and assistant to Dr. Horton Pangborn, and you must find a way to stop the evil ants before their bomb is completed. The game takes place over 8 days, each one divided into morning, afternoon, and evening. The characters you'll meet along the way include some who are friendly, and some who are not.
Ungrateful little punk! Hit him, Elroy! Let him have it!
Man, what's with the parents anyway? In subsequent playthroughs, you'll start to become familiar with who these characters really are and their role in the game. All of the scenes are interesting and fit well with the 50s B-movie horror theme. The acting is pretty good overall, with intentionally bad performances. Hey, like TurboViews. As I said, the segments themselves are horribly grainy and bland, but they're not too choppy, and unlike, say, Sherlock Holmes, the lips are synced up and things are quasi-full screen. Again, a product of their time.
You didn't raise me, you got that right.
Now, if what you've seen so far does nothing for you at all, well, the remaining elements to this game won't change your mind. And sadly, the biggest issues lie here, in what the manual calls the arcade games. In these segments sprinkled around the adventure, you'll attack and control Buzz in an overhead battle game where you close up ant holes in a super slow and clunky manner. A tunnel combat where you navigate down 3 levels to find the Ant Queen. The battle with the Queen herself. And an Antdroid game where you kill ants eating people. Oh man, I remember this as a kid. Ugh. It can be tricky to navigate those crosshairs, but is the best of the 4 games, and it still freaks me out. One issue here is that the 2 overhead games really do nothing to impact the overall progression, aside from prolonging the game by tossing Buzz underground or watching subsequent clips. Duh! Damn, that's creepy. They don't serve very much purpose. The horizontal segments are really the only games necessary to master, but they also have the least polished controls. There is a slight delay in shooting, and while the character animation is nice, it causes slow reactions and delayed turnarounds. You can attack with a limited amount of bullets and grenades with ammunition found on the ground. You'll end up here often, but luckily the game remembers your progress as long as you make it down to another level. You can only jump backward, which is weird, and you need to be in this attack position only in order to do so, or it won't work. That also holds true for dropping grenades, a weird mechanic indeed. Selecting strength during the live action segments will help you learn to do a long forward jump instead, which I recommend. Attacking the queen until you figure out the trick to it is also frustrating, as it changes up the controls a bit, controls you just spent time trying to master. And it's necessary to beat the game and get the good ending. The key to It Came from the Desert's arcade games is to learn the quirks and problems and get used to their unfinished feel. The question is, would you want to? It Came from the Desert originally appeared on computers, and when it hit the TurboGrafx, they decided to completely redo the game, using real actors and tweaking the gameplay. Some of it works. There was some thought put into this. I mean, the music is cool, and the 1950s horror theme is wonderfully B-movie. There is some quirky humor.
I have to have some proof before I go shooting my mouth off.
I'd like to shoot your mouth off.
Yeah, you.
And tying these clips together cohesively could not have been easy.
Thanks, kid. Now go get him.
I remember playing it as a kid, amazed at the non-stuttering video and vast amount of clips. Back then, I did have the patience to soak in the game's negatives in order to beat the Ant Queen. Then again, I might have practiced these segments using a couple of hidden codes that I found one random Sunday while fiddling with the controller. Don't believe me? My tips were actually published in an issue of SWAT Pro. Yeah, you remember that magazine? Sadly, like other so-called FMV games at the time, the gameplay itself is lacking. I enjoy the branching off storylines and wouldn't mind strictly having a consistently long and polished version of just playing a movie.
I like that.
The problem is the action parts are tossed in, requiring you to master a couple of them in order to finish the game. And aside from a couple of bright spots, they take an average FMV game and lower the fun factor even more.
Rock and roll!
I hate to come down on this title because It Came from the Desert is a unique TurboGrafx game that took some risks. It might be of some interest to video game historians out there, as it showcased technology available at the time. I warmed up to it after a couple of playthroughs and defeated that queen once more, but as a game, it doesn't really hold up well and seems a little too unpolished for its own good. So, can I recommend this? Yep, you guessed it. Sadly, no. Now, where did I put that raid?